ഹലോ ഗായ്സ്, അടുത്ത വീഡിയോയിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം. ഇന്ന് ഇവിടെ ഒരു സ്പെഷ്യൽ ഗസ്റ്റാണുള്ളത്. ഞാൻ എല്ലാവരെയും ഇൻട്രൊഡ്യൂസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പോവുകയാണ്. ഇല്ലില്ല, ആ ഫോട്ടോയിൽ കാണുന്ന ആളല്ല, ഈ കാണുന്ന ആളാണ്.
How's it going?
This is James here.
Yeah, I'm G2's old personal trainer.
Start asking, how was your childhood, like beginning there? Like, were you always fit, or were you like more towards the factor side, or how was it?
I was always a big kid. I always liked to eat. I think I use that as kind of like a coping mechanism for kind of being picked on a bit and not understanding how to deal with my emotions. So I used eating to kind of cope with that. And it was always a struggle. I think around like the age of like 8 or 9, I started gaining weight heavily. And then around like 12 or 13, I was like 200 something pounds. Like I looked pretty big, but I'd always been like taller than everybody else, so I figured that like that was why. But I realized that like once I stopped kind of growing, that I just kept getting bigger. And when I was 15, I was with 250 pounds, and like it was bad. It was just constant eating out. I don't even think I was like fit, so to say, until like I was about maybe 18. So I had lost a lot of weight, but I hadn't necessarily gained size, like muscle wise. I had lost weight, but I had still struggled.
So you just became skinny fat, basically.
Yeah, essentially, I was skinny fat. It's usually what happens when like you lose weight, but you don't do any kind of like weight training. So you do a lot more cardio and like circuit training, and you burn the fat rather than doing kind of both at once. Some people have the misconception that you can only do one at a time, but it's a little bit better to kind of do more of a recomposition where you burn fat but gain muscle.
At what point like did you realize you need to get fit, and what was the struggles that you had faced?
It was about when I was 15 or 16. I was kind of struggling with, I wouldn't say making friends, but kind of like just being social. I was very self-conscious with how I looked. I thought that everybody that was like passing me or like walking around me was judging me, was making fun of how I looked, right? And I absolutely hated it. So I kind of isolated myself. I stopped going to school, stopped going outside. I would sit inside and play video games or watch TV and just eat food. Like it was kind of like counterproductive, kind of just like isolating myself. But it felt like the right thing to do.
It began a cycle like where you isolate yourself, you eat more, that makes more isolation.
Exactly. It was just like like a vicious cycle of just like not being able to do anything. And like I had tried fad diets. I had tried, the no carb stuff like keto and paleo diets, and just like trying to restrict and eat salads all the time, and like you pretty much just starve yourself, right? And it opens up so much space for a rebound, where like you hit a point where you're like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna eat. You just binge and you gain everything back and maybe some more, right? So it's never good to do like kind of the fad diets, and I had not known that. And I think it was about when I was 15, about to turn 16, my mom found this ad on Facebook for a new personal training gym. It was just like a personal training only. It wasn't like an open gym. I, had somebody constantly with me, and it was just us, right? And which was a little bit more comfortable for me, as, I was terrified of a gym, right? You wouldn't think now.
All the jacked up people walking around.
Exactly, right? There's a lot of, it's a lot of intimidating factors there, and you just think that everybody was going to judge you for being new, right? So I signed up at this gym pretty much instantly. Like I kind of, something just clicked, and I knew that it was something I wanted to do, regardless if I didn't even have like kind of the thought of giving up or like what I would look like in the future. I kind of just went into it with no expectations, just wanted to better myself. And within 6 months, I worked out twice a week with a trainer for an hour each. Cost me about $600 something a month. It was expensive. A lot more expensive than you would think at most gyms, right?
My whole training was, I guess, that much.
Yeah, it was
like 6-7 months was that much.
Yeah, and for 6 months it's 600 a month, right?
A month, yeah.
But I mean, they were great. They did a meal plan for me, kept me accountable. They did workout programs for me. I would go in twice a week and work my ass off, mind my language, but I would work my ass off with my trainer.
Right.
And I had lost 60, 70 pounds in 6 months. And I looked like a completely different person. I went from having like a circle face to like an oval face, and then I had a jawline. It was It was crazy.
Seeing the jawline is like, you know.
Yeah, it's night and day, right? Like you see the jawline, like, oh my god, like I look good.
This guy.
Yeah, and
yeah,
like,
maybe the best decision of your life, buddy.
It definitely the best decision.
Right?
It not only changed my life and how I think of myself, other people, how I look, but how I live my life.
Right.
It completely changed it. Pretty much flipped it upside down.
Right.
It was crazy.
Right.
And I think I started in some time around like September, and ended in like beginning of February. From there, I kind of decided to part ways rather than continuing, as it was expensive. And I figured I had gained enough knowledge to continue. And I mean, definitely was a bit wrong. I had a lot of knowledge and sparked a passion for wanting to help people.
Right.
But I just figured that I had enough knowledge to go on my own.
Right.
And I was completely wrong. I was like all over the place. Like I would fluctuate in my diet. I didn't train for probably like 3 months after.
Oh, okay.
Like I signed up at a gym and I was terrified to go.
Okay.
I went in and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I needed somebody, right?
Yeah. So it's like you never know enough, right? No matter how much you learn, you never know enough.
No, exactly.
Okay.
And like this is like there's so many different ways to work out and target specific areas, changing angles and the working range of motion and whatnot, that you can constantly progress in different ways and learn different ways of doing things that works for you. And it also sparked a passion for wanting other people to feel the way that I felt, because I absolutely hated how I looked.
Right.
I bashed myself all the time for being fat or not being like social with anybody, and I was just afraid.
Right.
And it completely went away.
Right.
It was like I had so much mental clarity that I could do anything. Like my confidence went through the roof.
That's one of the benefits of doing workouts and
Exactly,
being healthy
yes.
in general.
It
Doesn't matter actually, like if you hit the gym or if you're just going cycling or swimming.
As long as you're just kind of getting some movement into your routine, it changes your perspective on things.
Right.
Not only do you change yourself physically,
Right.
but I think that's kind of even a side benefit of it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you could lift weights and you'll get muscular and you'll tone up a bit, but you'll also just have a different perspective on how you see things and how you take or how you perform certain actions to kind of like think before you talk or whatnot. I find that it just kind of helped with everything just in my head, right?
And so when did you become a personal trainer actually?
I think I wanted to pursue it after the 6 months.
Okay.
But I didn't know how.
Okay.
Because I had gotten kicked out of school and I was terrible at doing any type of like studying or school. It just wasn't for me.
Right.
I'm a very hands-on learner,
Right.
and I'm thankful for the career that I have, that I'm able to learn as I'm teaching people.
Right.
That in terms of like, there's always something to learn. Like you're not always gonna know everything. Right?
Right.
I don't think any coach could say they know everything.
Right.
But I think I turned.
If someone says that, you gotta turn and walk the other way.
Yeah, you probably turn around, right? But I turned 18 and I finally had learned of CanFit Pro.
Right.
It was a personal training certification that you could do online and kind of like an in-class. It's like a weekend thing.
Right.
Personally, probably wouldn't have done it. I now would never have done the certification if I had known what I know now.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
But I was naive, wanted to get into the business, and I just went with it.
Okay.
Definitely, it taught me things,
Right.
but compared to what I've learned from other people and being in the business, just wipes the floor with
So,
what they taught.
like a bit off topic here, but what certification would you like recommend to someone over here, you know, looking to get into this business?
CSEP would probably be CSEP or NASM
Okay.
are both like gold standard. CSEP, CPT or CEP, which is your certified personal trainer or certified exercise physiologist,
Right.
are both the gold standard of Canada.
Okay.
And that you can get pretty much any job with them in the fitness industry.
Right.
But they teach you so much. There's so many like prerequisites
Right.
for taking both of those courses,
Right.
and they also go in very depth to what they teach.
Right.
And I would highly recommend anybody who wants to get into personal training and they want to go through a certification process rather than going through school and doing like kin or anything like that, to look high, like just highly look into what they're going into, right? Like I looked into CanFit. Probably I didn't even look at it really. I was just like, this is a weekend course, I'm gonna do it, right?
Okay.
And it was a good course, great teacher, great people, but compared to what I could learn in like a different course like NASM or CSEP, would be night and day, right? Because it's not just like a one weekend type of thing.
Right.
It's like a full school semester.
Oh, okay, I guess. All right, so let's get back to your
Yeah.
stuff. So personal training. You got into personal training, and you got me. You
Yep.
changed my life too.
Yes.
Yeah, you began a cycle where I'm proud of. I've reduced like 12 kgs now, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy, that's 40 pounds.
Yeah.
Or 40 plus, honestly, yeah, because it's 2.2, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. You're almost back where you used to be, right? Kind of slowly going back.
Yeah. I need to go down at least like 30 more.
13?
30 kgs
30?
more. Yeah.
It's not terrible. It's doable, right? It's a process.
It'll take time, about a year or more, but I'll reach there.
Yeah.
And you started it, so
Yeah.
how did you get into bodybuilding, by the way?
I've always been into it in terms of like when I lost the weight, I had a personal trainer that was a bodybuilder.
Right.
And he was huge.
Yeah.
And I was just stunned by it, right? And I had
right.
seen like, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Kai Green, Phil Heath, like just like big bodybuilders that like are in the industry. I had seen them, and like obviously you see like the Instagram models that like they're just jacked and ripped, and you kind of want to look like that, right?
Right.
But I think that the thing that really sparked it was when I realized how much I liked the feeling of lifting weights.
Right.
That I didn't necessarily want to do bodybuilding even like for competing, but I wanted to do it just because I liked to
But
push
you did
myself.
compete, and you got second, right?
Yes, second place, yeah.
Right, awesome. Awesome.
I competed after a breakup with my ex. I decided to pursue it
Right.
in terms of competing and like hiring my own coach.
Right. It's always inspiring to see like people like us, coming up all this way and like getting second is no like small deal, like it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. I'm very proud of where I came from and where I've progressed to. I think that honestly I've just flipped my old self on its head and just completely changed. Like I don't think that there's an ounce of who I was before, besides like playing video games or whatnot, that is the same.
Right.
Like it's crazy.
It's totally crazy. That's right. So I'm just gonna go ask a few questions like a few friends asked, and we'll wind this up. It's getting cool.
Yeah,
I
that's
can
fine
see
with
that
me.
you're freezing as well. All right, James. So a lot of my friends were asking, like, it's lockdown time now, and many of them are sitting at home, most of the time eating junk food.
Yep.
So how can they fix their diet, and what kind of exercises can they do?
So I'll tackle, I guess, the training first.
Okay.
Any type of movement, just getting off your ass, moving around, go for some walks, have like a kilometer step goal per day, right? Or like you could go for like 5,000 steps a day at first, and then increase it maybe every week, go for 6,000 and 7,000 and onward, and that'll just kind of get everything burning, get your metabolism firing a bit more. You can start, if you want to, do some strength training, doing like just basic foundations of movement, like your squats. You can do some hip hinges, kind of learning movements. You can do push-ups, sit-ups, just very basic movements. Don't necessarily have to do a lot of them, but as you do them every day in your body.
Kind of learning the form as well.
Exactly, right.
Okay.
Form should be over everything else.
Right.
Making sure that, you're watching videos, being aware of how your body's moving. If you're feeling any pain, make sure that you are looking up or understanding why you have that pain and trying to work either around it or to fix it, whether it's like, pain of just having tightness in certain areas. Stretching as well is neglected among a lot of people, myself included, that you should really, really be paying attention to your flexibility and your mobility. It not only will help you with just movements, but tightness and just stiffness in general through life, it'll fix it. And it's just being consistent with all of those, right? Being active, just doing basic movements, going for walks, and focusing on flexibility.
And related to this, they can always go for like maybe online personal training.
Yes.
There are lots of options for that. And connecting to that, there was a question where people wonder where like personal training is like a bit costly,
Yes.
right? But in my opinion, and as you have shown through your life, it does help a lot.
Yes.
So what would you tell to beginners who are like confused if they should go with a personal trainer or not?
I believe that you should go with a personal trainer, but you should always make sure you know who you're going with. So ask as many questions as possible. Make sure people show their qualifications or show some sort of biography or transformations that they've done with people. I wouldn't just go with the person who looks pretty, right? Because the person that looks pretty isn't always the smartest person in the room. I could have six-pack abs and be jacked out of my head, but I could know nothing compared to working with different personality types, different body types, and just not only being a good trainer and coach, but having that personal side, right? Because that's a huge word in there, is personal. That I'm not only a coach or a trainer, I'm also like a therapist and a friend to people, right? Because not only do people, or I guess people don't always just sign up to lose weight or gain muscle. Sometimes they sign up because they are lonely, right? They kind of want something to do and to be social, right? So there's that aspect as well, that some coaches could be dickheads, right? You don't want to go with somebody who's going to treat you like garbage. You want to be with somebody who's going to uplift you, right? So I would say that it's a huge benefit to having somebody like that, and to make sure that you study up on who you're going to be signing up with, and make sure that they can answer all the questions, and if they don't know something, that they don't have an ego and try to give you false information just to please you, right? I'd rather have somebody not being able to answer my question at first and telling me, unfortunately I don't know the answer, but I will try and study up or figure it out for you, right? Rather than have somebody tell me like, oh, I have pain when I squat. Oh, you should just, lighten the load, or like just keep doing it, right? Or tell me that my form's wrong when I really have tightness in my hamstring, right? Whether, they're not necessarily troubleshooting why you would have that pain, they're going right to an answer, right?
Okay. So yeah, that's a really good answer. I think that would help a lot of people, determine whether or not to go forward with that.
Yeah.
The next question is like, some people think that cardio is better than weight training, and for fat loss especially, cardio is the best way to go. So what's your view on that?
I don't necessarily believe that you need cardio to lose the weight or to burn fat. I think that it has its place at a point in time. But I think people have the sense of accomplishment, right? Where they think that since they're sweating and that they're burning calories because the treadmill tells them that they are, that they think that is being good for them. But in reality, they're putting themselves in the caloric deficit, and they may or may not be eating enough, right? Where they're kind of detrimenting their own body while burning too much. Right. I think that first you should always kind of tackle what you're eating. I know this necessarily isn't, I guess, part of the question, but I think that you should tackle your eating. usually first, slowly but surely kind of tackle meal by meal.
Right.
Make sure you're not just jumping both feet into the water. You're going kind of one at a time.
Right.
And I think that you should do some sort of training, right?
Right.
Whether it's strength training with like barbells and such, or doing time under tension based, but you should be doing some form of weightlifting to help build a little bit of muscle and help get your body moving. And then do some form of cardiovascular exercise before and after in a very small increment, like 2 to 5 minutes, to get the blood flow going, kind of warm the body up, and then cool the body off. Until you've kind of tackled both of those, I don't think that you should be doing a heavy amount of cardio, like a 20 to 30 minute session. I believe that once you kind of have those tackled, slowly incrementing cardio to give yourself a caloric deficit to burn some fat is definitely beneficial.
And connecting to caloric deficit, like in diet, like I've seen, this is not a question though, like, but I've seen many of my friends doing it, so I just want, like, they might not believe me if I say it, so I would like if you say it, then like some people like starve themselves, like they go way below their required calories, and that in turn I believe is not good.
It's not healthy whatsoever, right?
Right.
Your body needs a certain amount of protein to build muscle and retain it as well. And when you don't have that protein, that your body starts burning its muscle mass and its bone density.
Right.
As well as carbohydrates, your body uses that for energy, right? You store it in your liver cells and in your muscle cells, and that you use that to, kind of get through the day, really. That there's no need to, starve yourself to lose the weight, because you're also going to gain that all back, right?
And you got more chance of rebound when you starve yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
A more healthy approach is kind of trying to target what is wrong, right? Some people, they'll be like, oh, I eat healthy, like I eat like a sandwich and salad and whatnot, and then when they get home they have like a beer, or they have chocolate and ice cream after, like kind of a dessert after their dinner, or they have some form of like frozen food in terms of like a frozen lasagna, for example, for dinner, right? Complete garbage, right? So targeting kind of making sure that they're eating whole foods, like eggs in the morning with some greens, right? Making sure that they could be taking like a multivitamin, so they get all their vitamins and minerals that they need, that they wouldn't get from a balance, or that you really can't get from just food, right? So kind of balancing everything. They kind of taught it in school as well, with that pyramid of food, is that like it's there for a reason.
Basically, you shouldn't go like below like 200 to 500 calories than required, right? More than that,
I think if you're putting yourself in a deficit, you should do it in a smart and slow way, by taking out 50 to 100 calories every week, right? And doing that in increments in terms of like carbohydrates. You usually would probably go first, where I would take out a small amount of carbohydrates per week, and then as soon as I get very, very low carbohydrates, I start to focus on feedback from my body, right? If my body is feeling fatigued, then maybe I might give myself a carb up meal, and then I would probably double my carbohydrates for 1 to 2 meals, which would then up my glycogen stores, fill my body out, make me feel less fatigued, and then I'm ready to kind of continue going down, right?
And what's your opinion about these famous diets like keto and paleo and all that stuff?
They have their place.
Right.
I think keto is good for diabetics, people who are, I believe it's insulin resistant, I believe it is.
You kind of go into ketosis where body uses fat instead of carbohydrates.
So your body uses ketones to kind of give energy to the body rather than carbohydrates. I'm not super familiar, so I can't necessarily go too in depth with it. But
see, that's where he's a great trainer. He always admits to something if he doesn't.
I want to make sure that I'm giving proper information rather than BS. I can say that there are people who benefit from it, but it's not necessarily something you kind of jump in, jump out, right? You can't just 2 weeks I want to go keto and then hop back out. It's a lifestyle, right? You have to do it for a very long period of time, and you have to have somebody monitoring your ketosis state. There are doctors and specialists that do this, and they monitor your diet for you, monitor your state of ketosis, making sure everything's good, and then they slowly take you out of it to make sure you maintain your weight
Right.
or to maintain a gain of weight. Because
So if you just switch it off, it's not gonna.
yeah, you're gonna drop out of ketosis and gain a bunch of weight
Right.
because your body's gonna be so sensitive to the carbohydrates, right?
That's gonna mess up your body.
Yeah.
Okay. And one last question is that till now we've been talking about fat people like trying to lose weight.
Yeah.
So I have a bunch of skinny people
Yes.
as friends too. Like they've tried everything they can to
Mhm.
like gain some weight or gain some muscle. So
Yep.
what do you recommend to them?
It's tough. I think that it's harder to. It's kind of both ways. It's like hard to lose weight, but it's hard to gain it, right? The biggest thing is being consistent, and that goes for both being skinny and being fat.
Right.
That you have to make sure for gaining muscle and gaining weight, you have to apply a proper stimulus to the muscle, right? Which then like you would need to do some sort of time or attention based training. So don't go into the gym and just move the weight for the sake of moving it. Move it with a purpose, right? So make sure that if I'm doing shoulder press, I want to feel it in my shoulders. I don't want to feel it in my arms. I don't want to feel it in my forearms. I don't want to feel it in my hands. I want to make sure I feel it in my shoulders, right? And if the weight's too heavy, because I feel it in my arms, I'm going to drop the weight, right? There's nothing wrong with lifting 10 pounds as long as you can feel it, right? You might be lifting that 10 pounds for like 3 weeks and then you go up to 20, right? It's not always about, just pushing weight, right? It's always about feeling and applying a stimulus to the muscle, which is making sure that you can feel it, right?
I keep saying it's the last question, but I just remembered another one. It's just a simple, short question though. Like, is it okay to start in your teens to go into gym, like 14, 15? Some people say that you get short because of that, or some.
I've never heard anything bad about it.
Right.
I've seen kids train when they're 13 for sports. Right. I've trained a 14-year-old. I've trained a 15-year-old. I think that, it's tough to, in terms of like, get jacked when you're 15 because you don't necessarily have hit like full puberty and kind of growing still. But I think that it's absolutely amazing for somebody that's 14 or 15 to be in the gym. They're not going to be lifting a lot, but they're going to be doing something, right? I think it's 100% beneficial.
So they're going into that healthier lifestyle, which will help them in the long run. Okay, perfect. So James, thank you so much for being with me.
You're very welcome.
And giving a lot of tips and sharing your story. I hope it will be a big inspiration for a lot of people.